All right. Good morning. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Depend where you are. So some people are still morning, some people in the afternoon. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. My name is Robert Gabriel. I'm going to be co-host today for today's seminar. I'm the president and CEO of Microwize Technology, and we also have with us Paul Redding. Paul is the vice president of HIPAA Compliance Group. So we're going to talk about how to become HIPAA compliance, and Paul is going to handle that part. Just a disclaimer, anything you learn in this seminar, you need to verify yourself. Microwize or HIPAA Compliance Group cannot be responsible for anything you learn during this seminar. You need to verify all the information yourself. Just a couple housekeeping items. This meeting is going to be recorded and it will be made public. Also, we don't have a huge group, so you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask the question yourself, or you can type it. And I have Justina Molly, she's the Vice President of Business Development at Microwize, and she will help me with the reading the questions if you have any questions. I hear from you because we can have more conversations during the seminar. Now, there's the agenda for today's seminar. We're going to talk about two things, the cybersecurity and the HIPAA compliance, then we're going to open for Q&A. Now, I'm going to start with the cybersecurity one, but since we are in the era of ChatGPT and artificial intelligence, so I thought I will add a fun spin to the presentation. So I actually had ChatGPT write me my content today, and I'm actually having a different AI to read the content for me. So it's the first time I do that. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it and let me know if you hate it or you like it. Okay, so without further ado, let's introduce my assistant AI to do the presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and thank you for joining me today for a lighthearted yet crucial discussion, protecting your small medical practice against cybersecurity threats with a sense of humor. My name is Microwize GPT, and I am the AI and avatar assistant of Robert Gabriel, President/CEO of Microwize. In this digital age, where technology is an integral part of our daily lives, even our keyboards can't protect us from the occasional facepalm when we realize we've fallen for a cyber scam. So, let's dive right in with some eye-opening stats. According to a report by HIPAA Journal, there were 658 healthcare data breaches in 2022, affecting 49.3 million individuals. IBM's 2022 data breach report found that the average total cost of a data breach in the healthcare sector was $4.82 million, making it the industry with the highest cost per breached record. It's clear as day that small medical practices need some serious cybersecurity muscle. Let's kick things off with a story about Dr. Lisa Thompson, a fantastic physician who had a not-so-fantastic day. She innocently received an email disguised as an urgent software update alert from her EHR provider, and without a second thought, she clicked on the link. Unfortunately, this seemingly harmless click unleashed malware into her computer and the clinic's network. Dr. Thompson couldn't help but facepalm as she realized her mistake, knowing that her patient's sensitive information was at risk. Her experience serves as a cautionary tale that even the smartest people can fall for a well-crafted scam. Our next story involves Dr. Lee, who received a phone call from Dell support. The friendly voice on the line claimed that they had detected a virus on Dr. Lee's computer and offered to help remove it. Without suspecting a thing, Dr. Lee allowed the fake support agent remote access to his computer. As you can probably guess, there was no virus, or at least not at first. Instead, the scammer planted malware on Dr. Lee's computer, compromising the clinic's network. Just like Dr. Thompson, Dr. Lee realized his error a little too late, reinforcing the need for vigilance in the face of cyber threats. Cyber criminals are creative. They use techniques like phishing, ransomware, and hacking to gain unauthorized access to sensitive information. Small medical practices are prime targets because they think they're low on resources, expertise, and ninja-like reflexes in cybersecurity. So, it's essential to stay informed about current threats and trends, and maybe even brush up on your cyber ninja skills. Remember the stories of Dr. Thompson and Dr. Lee. Learn from their mistakes and always stay vigilant. By doing so, you are not only protecting your business, but also demonstrating to your patients that you take their privacy and security seriously. And if you're a Microwize cloud client, rest assured that we have your back, providing you with the cybersecurity superpowers needed to defend against even the craftiest of cyber criminals. Let's all work together to create a safer digital environment for our small medical practices and maybe share a few laughs along the way. Thank you for your attention, and here's to a secure and successful future for your practice. To keep your practice safe and sound, there are some best practices you should follow. It's like putting on sunscreen to avoid a nasty sunburn. It's just common sense, friends. Make sure to keep your software up to date. Use strong passwords. None of that password 123 nonsense. Turn on multi-factor authentication and limit access to sensitive info. Protect your practice by employing technical measures like installing antivirus software. It's like chicken soup for your computer. Using a firewall, a digital keep out sign, encrypting data, and regularly backing up data, because it's better to be safe than sorry. It might be surprising, but your employees play a crucial role in maintaining your practice's cybersecurity. So, they need to be trained to spot cyber scams. Teach them how to recognize phishing attempts, report potential security incidents, and practice safe internet use. No more clicking on fake software update emails or trusting unsolicited tech support calls. Since June is Internet Safety Month, there's no better time to ensure your staff is up to speed. If you're a Microwize cloud client, you're already ahead of the game. Our cloud services, including Metasoft and Light at Cloud, provide the prevention, detection, investigation, and response you need, backed by a 24/7 managed detection and response (MDR) service. We know that most small medical practices can't afford an MDR service, but that's the beauty of Microwize. We're like the superheroes of cybersecurity, here to save the day without breaking the bank. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, protecting your small medical practice against cybersecurity threats is no laughing matter, but that doesn't mean we can't have a little fun while doing so. By understanding the risks, adopting best practices, implementing technical measures, training your employees, and creating a response plan, you can significantly reduce your practice's vulnerability to cyber attacks. Here's my contact information. Please reach out if you have any questions or want to let me know if you liked or hated my AI assistant.
All right. Thanks to the AI. And any questions, please don't be shy to ask questions. You can ask questions about if you have a question about backups or how to protect any of the stuff that we talked about. It's the time to do it, and don't be shy. All right. If you don't have any questions, without further ado, I'll turn in the presentation to Paul, and Paul is going to talk about how to become the benefit of becoming a HIPAA compliant, certified, and what is it going to help you with?
Robert, thank you so much. And thank you to your AI assistant there. I have to say that's the first time I've shared the virtual stage with a virtual person. You're taking the next steps there. Reminds me of the adage I saw the other day. You will not be replaced by artificial intelligence. You will be replaced by a person using artificial intelligence. That's actually pretty cool. Everybody out there, my name is Paul Redding, as he said. I am, is there a real person? Exactly. I am a human being. I am a vice president of channel and cybersecurity at Compliancy Group. I work closely with the Microwize team and partners like them to implement HIPAA compliance across technology companies. Today, I'm going to be talking to you just a little bit about compliance and security, kind of how they intersect, what's similar and different about the two, and ultimately what you need to do as a provider to keep yourself safe out there. Now, for the purpose of today's presentation, I am going to go ahead and stop my video and share my screen real quick, just so I don't distract myself. So everybody out there should now be seeing my screen, and we will provide a copy of this so that you can download and watch it again on your own or stream it on the Microwize website. So if you don't see it right now, go get it from them afterwards. But like I said, what we're going to talk about today is really the concept of compliance and security. The difference between these two, they're not the same thing, but why ultimately, if you're in healthcare out there, it takes a combination of both of these in order to stay safe in the modern world. Now, if you've not run into Compliancy Group before, that's okay. You may, however, have run into our seal of compliance that you see there. This is almost an industry standard in healthcare. We've been around since 2005. Back then, we were actually founded by HIPAA auditors. So the methodology and the way that we go about this whole thing was really developed in the infancy of HIPAA and healthcare compliance as a whole. But what we've done since that time is we built out a tool, a solution, if you will, a software as a solution product. It's called the Guard. Okay. It lives in the cloud. It's not something that Microwize and our customers have to run on servers or have running on your computers all the time. The Guard is in many ways akin to a QuickBooks, but for compliance. Okay. Think of it as a single point of truth, like a single repository for truth for all of the compliance for your organization as a whole, and something that really streamlines and makes this accessible and easy for an organization of any size, from a single person chiropractor all the way up to really large, complex business associates like Microwize, for example. We can make HIPAA and ultimately healthcare compliance as a whole something that's much easier to manage. Now, I'll go ahead and beat our chest just a little bit. Over all the time we've been doing this, no client that's got that seal of compliance has ever failed an audit. That's not because we haven't had clients get audited before. We have. As a matter of fact, we're probably engaged in helping our clients with 2 or 3 audits at any given moment. Sad truth is that bad things happen to good people. But if you use the solution that we've built properly and you validate and you get us to come in and say, hey, look, we've taken a look at this. You've put everything in place that you need in order to be able to prove your compliance. We have had a 100% track record of keeping our client on the right side of the law. Okay. We have, but when we issue that seal, we don't do it lightly. It means that as a part of our program, you're under our audit protection, and we'll actually go out there and help you fight that good fight. And that's why none of our clients have ever failed. Like I said, you probably have run into the seal somewhere at some point. It is endorsed by about 40 major medical associations. So very likely an association you are a member of may be using us and even recommending us to their members as a way to first achieve and then ultimately prove your compliance to the world. Now, that seal, that is a small part of why Microwize chose us as a partner and why an organization like them would actually use somebody like us to work with HIPAA compliance. You see, Microwize provides a lot of services for healthcare, from EHR services, IT services. There are a litany of different things that Microwize is doing for organizations just like yours. And because of that, it means they understand their risk is ultimately your risk. Microwize owes it to you as a customer to protect you by being HIPAA compliant themselves. And let's face it, that process can suck. It can be really difficult to deal with something like HIPAA. HIPAA is a 700-page law written by lawyers to be audited and interpreted by other lawyers. Dealing with this thing is an arduous and difficult task, and not why Microwize as an organization came together any more than it's why you went to med school, right? I had a doctor one time tell me that he views HIPAA as something that was done to him for trying to help people. And without the right solution and the right partner, that's very much the case. That's why Microwize came to us and uses us to make this thing easier for them. And let's face it, there's something culturally different about Microwize than all those other vendors out there in the space. Tell you what it is. They recognize that because they work with you, they're in healthcare too. They don't think it's some far away kind of somebody else's problem that I'll deal with a little bit, just try to avoid. They embrace their own responsibility when it comes to compliance. They want that seal on their website to tell you as their client, they're doing the right thing. And they want you on this webinar today to say, hey guys, we hope you're doing the right thing in your own organization, because compliance is a serious risk for everyone involved. And they don't want their partners involved in audits any more than they want to be involved in an audit. That's where we came from. Now, you'll notice that we talk almost exclusively about healthcare when you see us, okay? It's not the Compliancy Group doesn't recognize there are other industries out there that need help with compliance. It is because healthcare is such a large and ultimately underserved sector. It's where we were born. It's where we believe the biggest risk is. And so we've dedicated our entire mission to helping healthcare organizations achieve and illustrate their own compliance. And part of the reason is because that sector is so vast. I don't know if you're out there listening today, if you realize you're part of almost a third of the US economy. Like the US economy, almost a third of it is made up of healthcare, and the enforcement and attacks against it are increasing on a yearly basis. As a matter of fact, just in the last year, there's been over a 400% increase in enforcement against HIPAA and other violations in healthcare. And
Believe it or not, since the inception of this law, 94% of businesses have failed their audits. That means over 9 out of 10 organizations, when they are audited, are going to fail the audit, be fined, given major civil penalties. They are going to have major issues. And yet, if you heard what I said a minute ago, none of our clients with that seal have ever ended up in that boat. And that's because you don't have to be perfect. You have to understand your responsibilities and check every box. Okay. Now, before anybody calls me a liar out there, I did not just try to tell you that there are 5 million doctors. There are not. As a matter of fact, the covered entities are the smaller side of the table. For all of you in medicine out there, there's about 800,000 small businesses that are considered covered entities. So the doctors, dentists, clearinghouses, psychiatrists, etc. But for every one of you, there's 4 of Microwize. You've got Microwize as your IT and maybe your EHR, but then you have Microsoft providing your email. And you have Ring Central or somebody providing your phone service, and you're using something else for telehealth, right? All of those business associates that are your vendors are really supposed to be HIPAA compliant as well. And it's up to you as an organization to know how to recognize the right ones to work with versus the wrong ones and make the right partnerships happen. That's why you've chosen very wisely being here with Microwize today, because they understand their side of this table. Now, while we're kind of call it clearing the fog here, let's hit that title of the presentation, right? Compliance versus security. What the heck is the difference, Paul? Listen, it's actually really simple to understand. You are compliant with a law, a regulation. Somebody has created a big, long series of things that you have to do, and they're not all technical. As a matter of fact, the majority of them are organizational or administrative. They tell you what needs to be set up inside your company from policies and procedures to how you operate. Okay. The technical controls, the part that's all the IT questions, are deliberately vague because let's take HIPAA, for example. This law is written for a single person chiropractor and Kaiser Permanente equally. They both are required to comply with the exact same law that has the exact same security controls. But that doesn't make any sense, right? Because chiropractor tiny, Kaiser huge. How can that work? Well, in compliance terms, you're really avoiding being fined or ending up on the wrong side of that law. So your goal is don't get penalties assigned by the government or some organization in the terms of monetary, civil, or even criminal penalties. Security is risk management. Okay. So while the law gave you all those vague controls, a security expert, again, like a Microwize providing out those IT security controls for you, can come in and say, okay, look, this is the size business you are. This is the risk you actually face. This is what's reasonable for you and effective for you to put in place from a cybersecurity perspective. But I'll leave healthcare for a second, make this make more sense. You got Nike and Boeing, right? They're both publicly traded, massive companies. They both have to be compliant with SOX and other standards. They both have gray security controls they must achieve. But Nike makes tennis shoes and Boeing makes missiles. The government cares more about Boeing's missiles than they do Nike's shoes. So Nike gets to run out of money for cybersecurity before Boeing. That's the way this works. But ultimately, you as a medical professional just want to be safe, right? You spend a ton of time in school. You spend a ton of time building your business. You don't want something bad to happen to you that puts you out of business or financially breaks you, right? That's why you need to work with somebody like a Microwize to make sure all those security controls are in place, but also somebody like a Compliancy Group to make sure that you have all the non-technical stuff in place. Because while the foundation of compliance is security, it's not the doors and walls and windows. When you build a house, the only thing that gets in is not what crawls across the floor, right? So in order to do this correctly, yes, you build that foundation of security, but if you don't do something about the rest of it, I don't know which one you like better in your house. Snakes, bugs, or rain, something's getting in, right? That's the concept here. You need a complete solution like you need a house with all your walls and windows. Now, I told you in the beginning, bad things happen to good people. If you're not familiar with some of the risks that you're facing out there, I would highly recommend that you take a look at this, okay? It's called the HIPAA Wall of Shame. Easiest way to find it, just Google HIPAA Wall of Shame. HIPAA is spelled with 2 A's, please, HIPAA, Wall of Shame, and you will find an OCR managed database of all the good people that bad things happen to. The government maintains a permanent, always searchable and available list of everyone that's ever run afoul of this law. And they keep track of your name, your organizational type, what happened, how much they fined you, what you did wrong in the first place, the nature of the breach. And what you'll find out if you take a look at this is while almost, in this case, if you look at my examples here, every single incident listed here is a hacking or IT breach. Guys, you do not get fined for the breach. You get fined for your compliance when the breach happens. If you take a look on the other side of the page here, what you'll see is, like, let's just take the first one alone. Look, Vanderbilt has a hacking or IT incident, but the first thing they're fined for is $31,000 because they were missing a business associate agreement with one of their vendors. They didn't even get through the audit before they got hit with that 31K. That's just first part of the audit. Give me a list of all your vendors and show me all their BAAs. You don't have one. It's 31 grand a piece for each one you're missing. The second one here, they had a hacking or IT incident, $500,000 for a late breach notification. They didn't realize how little time they actually had to report this breach, and then they didn't know how to do it when they got there. I'm not going to read every one of these, but if you take a look at it, what you'll find is while the hacking incident starts the problem, what you get fined for is a lack of compliance, organizational controls like contracts with your vendors, a breach notification program, training to your employees. Those things were out of place, and that's what you actually get fined for. Before we leave this page, I will remind you the average fine since this law started was $1.5 million. So no, not everybody gets hit for an unencrypted laptop for $2.7 million, and not everybody gets away with just a $25,000 slap on the wrist for putting somebody's name on a Google review, right? The average fine, give or take, is $1.5 million since the inception of this law. Personally, I don't have that laying around. Yeah, I'll point out when I talk about a 400% increase in enforcement, and this one I just jumped back to 2021 because that's when this snowball started rolling down the hill. Folks, one of the most common things we see out there right now are patient right to access fines. Fines ranging from about $10,000 to give or take $100,000 or $200,000 because you take too long to get me my medical records or you try to charge me too much. I don't know if you realize it out there, but you have 30 days to get me my medical records if I ask for them. And not 90 days because you're fired and you're trying to restore from hard drives, not 60 days and you're going to charge me $10 each. You have 30 days to get them to me. And by the end of this year, it's likely going to go to 15. That's why security and even cyber controls in general are important. One of the things that cybersecurity controls are going to call out is effective good backups. And I'll tell you now, just kind of pull the curtain back, an effective backup is not a hard drive sitting on your desk somewhere. Okay. So understand that one of the things they're hitting people for the most right now has nothing to do with cybersecurity at all. It's how you manage my records when you get them back to. Now, personally, I've been doing this a long time. And if I back up years ago, one of the most common things people used to say to me is, Paul, I don't even believe I'm ever going to get audited. I don't know anybody that's ever been fined. I'll take my risk. And if they get me, they're going to bankrupt me. Okay. If you don't believe in the HIPAA police, do you believe in bloodthirsty lawyers? Because I certainly do. One of the things that is the biggest risks that are about to start facing the healthcare community today is a class action lawsuit. And before anybody out there calls me out, no, I cannot sue you for violating HIPAA. It's a law. The government takes care of that. But I don't know if you realize that when you let me sign your privacy notifications and your privacy paperwork, when you fill out all that stuff in a doctor's office as a patient, it is an implied contract between me and the organization that I am signing into there that says you are going to do the right thing with this. Okay. It says, like, for example, MCG Health here, they're being sued by over almost 800,000 people saying, these people had an implied contract with you that said you were HIPAA compliant and that you knew what you were doing and you were going to take the necessary steps to not protect it, to try to protect it. And guess what? They didn't. I'll back up one more again and show you this one more time. These guys right here, before they even got a HIPAA audit completed, they've already been hit by the state of California they have to give $250 each minimum to all 496,000 people because breach of implied contract and loss of confidence. See, folks, I don't know if you remember what actually got asbestos out of our houses. It wasn't the law. It was the class action lawsuit commercials. Remember? Have you been a victim? That's what actually got this thing moving. And that's what's going to happen in healthcare is you're going to see attorneys jumping in and taking a huge chunk of cash out on the front end before the government ever gets done. It is not going to be fun for the organization that continues to ride the sketchy boat down the river by themselves. End of fear and doubt. I'm going to stop beating you up for a second. I know that was probably a lot. It is very serious, but I think, it is also time to show you this is not supposed to be just all gloom and doom, folks. I showed you the risk. Let me show you how simple it is to actually do this the right way. Look, I'll take HIPAA, for example. HIPAA's only 3 rules. All 700 pages are basically boiled down into the 3 things you see on this page right here. There's the privacy rule. And if you're a healthcare org out there, probably already know what I mean. This is the paperwork I just alluded to in the contract. This is how and what you do with my medical records when you get them. Then there's the security rule. Microwize's problem, right? My IT vendor, that's the IT part of the world. Careful, don't get ahead of yourselves. Yes, IT is a portion of the security rule, but it's really only about a third of it. The security rule includes your cybersecurity, but it is also how you physically protect the paperwork, the pictures of the patient's privacy when they're on site, the physical part of the building. I don't know how many providers out there realize you're supposed to have an alarm and a fire extinguisher if you're in healthcare. That's not a cybersecurity control, but it is part of HIPAA. And then there's the omnibus rule over there, the one way over on the right. Weird word, right? Once I say this, you'll never forget it. I call it the on the bus rule. Okay. This is how I got here. It's how Microwize gets here. This is the rule that brought business associates to the table. It says, look, if your client's in healthcare and they're on the HIPAA bus, get your butt on the HIPAA bus with them. You're in healthcare too. It's what pulled all these other business types and organizations into this world. And it did it because they realized that many times the breach comes in through that vendor. It's also where they added in the concepts that, like breach notification, they gave up and said, okay, it's not about preventing it and not keeping it from happening. It's also knowing what to do when it finally happens to you. This right here, if you look at it, is all you have to do for HIPAA. But remember, it's cumbersome. And this is the part to understand. For every rule, you have to do an assessment to say, hey, am I following this? What does it require? Am I doing? What you're assessing against partially is, do I have policies and procedures in my organization telling my people what to do in these circumstances and how to do their job in a HIPAA compliant way? And then lastly, am I training all of my people and showing them how these policies and procedures work and making them responsible for doing the right thing? If you are, then you are HIPAA compliant. Now, I emphasize the soft side, the policy and procedure side, but remember, security and cyber stuff, it is included. As a matter of fact, there's a document that you can reach out and get from Microwize. It comes from Health and Human Services. It provides step-by-step everything you have to do inside your organization from a cybersecurity perspective. And it looks exactly like what your IT team is telling you. Access controls, who gets what and where, endpoint protection. Look, I'll let Microwize explain it, but antivirus is like super dead. Endpoint protection is where we are. Protecting the computer you access it with, okay? Monitoring and auditing. Somebody's supposed to know who did what, when, and where, and be able to prove it if something happened. It's not good enough to say, I think something happened. Well, Paul, what happened and how do you know? Network security. This is like how the data moves in your organization itself. And then all of this stuff has got to be backed up, folks. Every single bit of EPHI you've got out there has to reside somewhere else in a way you can retrieve it. Because remember, I told you, you got 30 days to give it back to me and be able to prove nothing happened in that time. Okay. Now, there are a few more cybersecurity controls out there, but even if you implement every single one of them, it does not make you HIPAA compliant. If you leave out the soft side, if you're looking at me, you see me air quotes, the soft side, the assessments, the policies and procedures, and the training portion of all this, the incident management portion of all this, then if the technology is breached or circumvented, you are still going to fail an audit. And over 80% of the fines issued have been because of these things right here. Now, I have people ask me all the time, Paul, that makes no sense. If you tell me that 90% of the incidents that caused the actual breach are hacking and IT incidents, why are 90% of the fines issued about something unrelated? Well, that's because most of the time when there's a hacking or IT incident, the technology did not fail. A human being did something stupid. They were the reason that the bad guy got in. 86% of the time, it started from a lost device that had bad credentials, a phishing attack or a smishing attack or a bad text message that your staff followed down a rabbit hole and let this person in. I equate it to like if you talk about the old movies, there were vampires. So, right, the old movies, black and white stuff, I could put like garlic on the windows and crosses on the door. But if I invited the vampire in for dinner, I was dessert, right? You cannot prevent the bad guys from getting you if you leave the doors open. An alarm is no good in an unlocked house, right? Make it make more sense. If you're from Hawaii out there, you know exactly who this guy is. If not, you might remember the story when I tell it to you. This guy, not in healthcare, worked for the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency. I was one of their administrators and was super proud of his job. Well, he's so proud, as a matter of fact, that this is his Facebook profile right there and that he had put up. Now, if you live in Hawaii, you definitely remember because middle of the day, one lovely day like this, all of a sudden everybody's phone goes off with that like Amber Alert lights, right? We regret to inform you, North Korea has launched a thermonuclear attack against Hawaii. Basically, crawl under the table and text mom you love her. It's up, right? But there was no attack. This is his Facebook profile, and that is his username and password stuck to the screen behind it. And if you look closely at the screen on the left, that's the one that's from. Look on the right. There's another one. Look, I don't have to be a sophisticated hacker if you give me your username and password on Facebook with the URL and all the information, the software sitting on the screen. So you see, no technology was going to prevent this. No cybersecurity control was going to get in there. And if somebody gets in trouble, it doesn't need to be because they didn't have the right technology. I'll show you what would fix it. Little old HIPAA. Nothing complicated, none of those GOBA controls or any of the financial stuff, just an audit from somebody like me. You see, I wouldn't just do the cyber risk assessment. I would actually do that physical side we talked about. My organization, Microwize, for example, it would have somebody walk around and look and say, Bob, do you realize you have your username and password stuck to the screen in front of you? Here, rip that thing off. Let me take you to our policies and procedures and show you what you're not doing right. Or go ahead and put you back through some training here to emphasize to you that it is your responsibility to do better. Okay. Assessments, policies, procedures, training. The soft side of compliance is the only thing that stops you from sitting under the table in Hawaii, texting mom, I love you, it's over. Right? Like, and nobody expected that something so simple could create such a massive problem, right? That is only one of literally millions of incidents caused by human beings making the wrong decisions and the soft side of compliance not being followed. Okay, folks, that's why Microwize brought us here to talk to you today, to tell you what this entails. I hope I've done a decent job of explaining this is bigger than just the cybersecurity side. You've got to do the actual assessments. Look, you have to audit yourself against each rule. Do my policies and procedures reflect what the law says here? And are we doing it? Has anybody told your employees how to do their job this year? And do you have date and timestamp proof and attestation from these folks that if they do something wrong later, you can prove you did your part? Do you have your contracts with your business associates in order? Ever review those? Has anybody ever taken a look at them with you to make sure that you're doing the right thing in those contracts and you yourself are protecting yourself the right way? And then lastly, what do you do? Not if, but when something happens. Folks, no one is perfect. The law doesn't expect you to be. We built a solution to make it simple, manageable, and ultimately achievable to be compliant and to be able to prove it. Reach out to us. I would love to talk to you further, explain how the process works, what the solution can do for you. And again, I would like to thank Microwize for having me today. I do have a couple of documents that you can either reach out directly to us at info@compliancygroup.com, or you can reach out to Microwize. They have a checklist for your own organization to tell you, what you ultimately need to be compliant. And then we've got some documents to help you understand what the law requires.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.